Steve Wilkins is the author of Beyond Bumper Sticker Ethics, an introduction to the theories of right and wrong. In Chapter 6, The Greatest Happiness, he elaborates on utilitarianism, including his definitions and perceptions of the theory. To put it simply, utilitarianism is the term for the concept, the greatest happiness for the greatest number. To provide some context, Wilkins describes how many people are uncomfortable with ethical egoism because it advocates the selfish pursuit of happiness. He writes that this equates to selfishness at the highest level. The question at hand is, can we create an acceptable ethical theory around a bumper sticker that advocates the greatest happiness for the greatest number? Wilkins describes how utilitarianism derived from ancient hedonism, which is the idea that good people should seek happiness or pleasure. It's used today as a word closely associated with having a lot of fun. Aristotle created a guide for happiness, beginning with this question: what do our actions tell us about what we want? He believes that there are several things in life that lead to happiness, and essentially they are the same for just about everyone. According to Aristotle, happiness is the only thing that has intrinsic value. It is good in itself, and it's not just a way to get something else. So let's bring this idea of happiness and connect it to the definition of utilitarianism. The idea is that utilitarianism derives from usefulness or utility. According to the theory, acts are morally right when they succeed in bringing about a desired result. Acts are good when the result is happiness. Only happiness is an end in itself. Therefore, it is the only true standard of goodness. So now that we have linked happiness and utilitarianism, we can now go over specific aspects of utilitarianism that are important to understand. Utilitarianism emphasizes the idea that happiness is for the greatest number. Philosopher Jeremy Bentham describes this further. It's a happiness party, he writes. The whole party is affected by a decision. So if the decision is to be happy, then everyone can be happy and enjoy it. Life's a party. To take this further, Wilkins describes two criteria requiring happiness for the greatest number. First is that each person is valuable. Therefore, one person's happiness is as important as another's. As this is true, secondly, happiness cannot be achieved in every situation. Wilkins writes about utilitarianism as consequentialism, essentially describing that if God desires above all things the happiness of his creatures, and that utility is not only a godless doctrine, but more profoundly religious than any other. Wilkins describes quantitative utilitarianism by providing an example regarding an election. Here it is. In the next election, we should let the people decide whether continued funding for cultural education or $200 voucher for video equipment for each household brings about the greatest good for the greatest number. Who do you think would win? While you ruminate on that question, I'll describe qualitative utilitarianism to you according to the author. Essentially, the idea is not that every person is in a position to be a competent judge of moral matters. To conclude, Wilkins illustrates the positive and negative effects of utilitarianism. I'll lay them out before you now. Positive attributes to the theory include the idea that happiness is the only thing that is intrinsically good. Only pain is evil in itself. Additionally, no individual's happiness is more valuable than that of any other. Therefore, we should seek the pleasure of the greatest number. Remember, life's a party. Thirdly, the only thing that is ethically significant in judging an action is the result. Since happiness is the only intrinsic good, it is the result to be pursued. On the other hand, utilitarianism can be problematic in that we don't always know the results, and we might not know how to compare them either. Can we know the extent of the consequences or what happens to justice and other ethical virtues when utilitarianism is in play? 3 additional questions that address the problematic nature of utilitarianism are: does motive count? Is morality dependent on the success of an action? And who is ethically responsible? Wilkins says that if we turn to God's word, Jesus never says, Happy are those who seek happiness. Instead, the happiness that Jesus promises to his followers may be the byproduct of fulfilling certain duties. These concepts are central to the ethics of philosopher Immanuel Kant, who faulted utilitarianism for making the results the measure of right and wrong.